Welcome back everyone to Retro Football Club. Today we're diving into the world of football transfers, but not just any transfers. We're talking about the ones that left fans scratching their heads. The surprising moves that no one saw coming. From Premier League legends popping up in unexpected places, to international stars dropping down to the lower leagues and random celebrity signings, these are the transfers that make you wonder, how did that even happen? So without further delay, let's get straight into it. Fino Aspria's potential move to Darlington in 2002 has become a well-known almost story in football circles, especially given the contrast between his reputation and Darlington's status in English football at the time. After his success with Newcastle United in the Premier League and a memorable career in Europe, the Colombian international's post-Premier League trajectory saw him playing in various leagues worldwide. In 2002, as Darlington was struggling in England's fourth tier, rumours swirled that the club, under new ownership by eccentric businessman George Reynolds, was pursuing Aspria. Darlington, who at the time were playing their final season at their Feetham's home, were on the verge of moving to their new 25,000-capacity stadium, the conveniently named Reynolds Arena. George Reynolds tabled an offer to the Colombian that included a weekly wage of £17,000, which also included 25% of their gate receipts. He was also offered a free car and a luxury apartment as part of the package. Initially, the player was refused a work permit. However, Darlington successfully appealed this, and on the 27th of August, he was paraded on the Feetham's pitch in front of a jubilant crowd ahead of Darlington's game against Carlisle United. 2 days later though, after stalling on his medical, Aspria took a night flight out of Newcastle Airport, en route to the Middle East, to sign for another club on a more lucrative deal. Reynolds, who had previously referred to Aspria as a friend, said he was shocked by the snub, and that he would never speak to him again. The identity of the other club was never known, and the player next rocked up back in South America a few months later, playing for Universidad de Chile. Despite fans and the media being under the impression that he was now an official Darlington player, the move in itself left egg on the face of Reynolds and the club. Even 25 years later, it's still discussed as one of football's most bizarre transfer stories. Paul Gascoigne's short spell at Boston United in 2004 is remembered as one of the most unexpected moves in English football. After a storied career with clubs like Newcastle United, Tottenham Hotspur, Lazio and Rangers, the former England international was regarded as one of the most gifted footballers to come from his country. During his later career, he had stints with the likes of Everton and Burnley, even managing a brief stint in China. But Gascoigne was aiming for one last chance in English football. At the time, Boston United were in League Two, the fourth tier of English football, and signing a player of Gascoigne's reputation was a bold and surprising move. Boston's manager Steve Evans saw the potential in Gascoigne to inspire the squad and bring media attention to the club. Gascoigne arrived at Boston, made a handful of appearances, and was greeted warmly by fans who were excited to see such a famous player at their club. However, his time there was brief and challenging. Fitness struggles and ongoing personal issues limited his impact on the pitch, and he played only 5 matches for the club before leaving. While Gascoigne's stay at Boston didn't have a major impact in football terms, it remains a memorable moment due to the stark contrast between his high-profile career and the humble surroundings of a club who had spent the majority of its history in the non-league game. This move symbolized a period when football icons occasionally turned up in unexpected places, making for an unforgettable chapter in lower league football history. One not technically a transfer, in 2003, Doncaster Rovers chairman John Ryan made history by briefly playing for the club he owned. This unusual appearance took place in a conference match against Hereford United, where he came on as a substitute for the final minutes. At 52 years old, Ryan's debut set a record as the oldest player to feature in an English professional football match, and was even entered into the Guinness Book of Records. Ryan had purchased Doncaster Rovers in 1998, at a time when the club was struggling financially and in poor form. His efforts revitalized the club both on and off the pitch. Under his ownership, Doncaster achieved success, eventually climbing back up the leagues. His decision to briefly play was both a promotional move and a personal achievement, fulfilling a lifelong dream. Although he didn't play long enough to impact the game, the appearance was a memorable moment for both the fans and Ryan himself, symbolizing his deep commitment to the club. Bebe's transfer to Manchester United in 2010 remains one of the most puzzling and controversial in the club's history. Signed for £7.4 million from Portuguese side Vitória, he joined the club without Sir Alex Ferguson ever seeing him play, something completely unheard of with any other incoming player. The signing raised eyebrows, as Bebe was a relatively unknown player who had spent much of his early career in the Portuguese lower leagues and even spent time living in a homeless shelter before moving up through amateur football. The move was reportedly suggested to Ferguson by his assistant, Carlos Queiroz. However, rumors swirled that the deal was heavily influenced by the player's agent, Jorge Mendes, who also represented fellow Portuguese United player Nani. Mendes was known for managing high-profile players and for his strong connections in football, particularly in Portugal. Some reports speculated that Mendes's influence might have played a role in convincing United to secure the transfer, despite the player's limited track record. During his time at United, Bebe struggled to make an impact. He only made a handful of appearances, and his performances were widely criticised. His lack of readiness for top-level football was apparent, and he was eventually sent on loan to various clubs before moving away from United permanently in 2014. Although he later carved out a decent career in Portugal and Spain, his Manchester United stint is remembered as one of the most unexpected and baffling transfers the club has made. Fabio Ravenelli, known as the White Feather, was a high-profile striker who had enjoyed success with clubs like Juventus, where he won the Champions League in 1996, and was also a seasoned veteran with the Italian national team. In 1996, he caused the first shock when he moved to Premier League relegation strugglers Middlesbrough. He was a hit on Teesside, and his eventual departure to Marseille a few years later left a hole in the team. He went on to play for Lazio before returning to the Premier League with Derby County. By the time he joined Scottish minnows Dundee, he was in the twilight of his career, but he was still considered a high-caliber player. Ravenelli arrived at Dens Park amid financial troubles at the club, which had surprisingly managed to assemble a squad with several high-profile players. However, his time there was short-lived. Despite scoring a goal on his debut in a cup game with Clyde, Ravenelli's stint was marked by ongoing financial instability, and he left after only a few months when the club went into administration. His signing was controversial because of the financial strain his wages reportedly placed on the already struggling club. Upon his departure, Ravenelli said the club's hierarchy had not been honest with him about the financial situation when he joined. He returned to Italy shortly after, to see out the rest of his career. Sol Campbell's move to Notts County in 2009 was one of the most shocking transfers in English football history. Campbell, a former England international and Premier League star with Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal, suddenly dropped 4 leagues down to sign for League Two club Notts County, in what was expected to be a groundbreaking transfer. The move was orchestrated as part of an ambitious plan by the club's new owners, Munto Finance, who had promised significant investment to push Notts County up the divisions. The club managed to lure Campbell with a 5-year contract reportedly worth around £40,000 a week, an enormous sum for a League Two team. The project also saw Notts County bring in former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson as director of football, adding further allure to their ambitions. However, doubts about the financial backing and sustainability of Munto Finance's plan quickly arose. Campbell's time at Notts County was exceptionally brief. He played only 1 match with the club, before expressing concerns about the direction and stability of the project. Just a few days later, Campbell left the club, citing disappointment with broken promises and unfulfilled ambitions from the owners. This left Notts County facing scrutiny over its finances and led to further instability, as Munto Finance eventually withdrew support, leaving the club in significant financial trouble. After his departure, Campbell returned to the Premier League for a short spell with Arsenal. His move to Notts County remains a reminder of the risks of ambitious but unsustainable football projects, especially when financial backing isn't secure. Julian Faubert's unexpected loan move from West Ham United to Real Madrid in 2009 is one of the most peculiar transfers in football history. At the time, the player was struggling to make an impact at West Ham, and his performances had been inconsistent due to injuries and lack of form. Real Madrid, dealing with injuries in their squad, made the unexpected decision to loan Faubert in January 2009, reportedly paying West Ham around €1.5 million for the deal. Faubert's stint in Spain, however, was brief and uneventful. He made only 2 appearances and famously made headlines when he was spotted appearing to fall asleep on the bench during one game. He later claimed this was a misunderstanding. Despite the initial shock surrounding his transfer to one of the world's biggest clubs, Faubert's time in Madrid ended quietly, and he returned to West Ham without making a major impact. The move remains memorable for its sheer improbability, with many fans seeing it as an example of Madrid's occasional unconventional signings. After his return to West Ham, Faubert continued his career in various leagues around the world, but the surreal period at Madrid is often what he's most remembered for. Next up, we have Dutch generational talent, Edgar Davidz, who rocked up with Barnet in 2012. Known as one of the best midfielders of his generation, Davidz had a stellar career at top European clubs including Ajax, Juventus, Milan, Barcelona, Inter, and Tottenham Hotspur. The Dutch international, famous for his tenacious style and trademark protective glasses, was an iconic figure. After seemingly retiring from high-level football, he reappeared in England in one of the most unexpected ways. In October 2012, he joined Barnet as a player-manager. The London-based club from League Two announced that Davidz would work alongside current manager Mark Robson. Barnet had been struggling towards the bottom of the league, with Davidz making his debut and having an immediate impact on the pitch. His presence brought media attention and drew fans to the club, but the season was challenging. Despite his efforts, Barnet were relegated from the Football League at the end of the 2012-13 season. Robson was dismissed, but Davidz continued and made some controversial decisions. He installed himself as club captain and gave himself the number 1 shirt, saying he wanted to start a new trend for outfield players, wearing the number usually reserved for goalkeepers. He also announced he would not attend away games that required an overnight stay. Discipline was also a problem, and by the time he resigned in January 2014, he had been sent off 3 times already that season. Although strictly speaking he was the club's manager, having a former world-class international star playing in what is essentially England's 5th division is not something you come across very often. Returning to Doncaster, Louis Tomlinson, a member of the pop band One Direction, made headlines in 2013 when he signed as a non-contract player with Doncaster Rovers, his hometown club. Tomlinson, a lifelong fan of the team, joined their development squad with proceeds from his involvement going towards charity. He was offered the contract after impressing in a charity game. The collaboration was part of an effort to raise funds for Bluebell Wood Children's Hospice, and it generated excitement among fans of his band. Tomlinson's official debut was for the reserves and took place on February 26, 2014, against Rotherham United. Though his appearance was brief and mostly ceremonial, the move was a unique intersection between celebrity and sport. Tomlinson later expressed an interest in deeper involvement with the club, even exploring a bid to buy it with former chairman John Ryan. While the bid ultimately didn't come to fruition, his dedication to the club and involvement in community initiatives were well received. In terms of his football career though, his only other appearances have come in charity matches such as Soccer Aid. Ali Dia's brief stint at Southampton in 1996 is one of the most infamous transfers in football history. Dia, a relatively unknown Senegalese player, had been playing in England's 6th tier for Blyth Spartans, before he somehow managed to secure a contract at Premier League club Southampton. According to legend, his friend called Southampton manager Graham Souness, pretending to be George Weah, and claimed that Dia was his cousin and an experienced player with a strong record, including a stint with PSG and numerous caps for Senegal. Without thoroughly verifying the information, Souness offered the player a 1-month contract. On November 23, 1996, Dia made his unexpected Premier League debut against Leeds United, coming on as a substitute for Matt Le Tissier. However, it quickly became clear he was not up to the level expected, struggling to keep up with the pace and lacking the necessary skills. He was substituted after just 53 minutes, ending his one and only professional appearance. It's reported that he left the ground shortly after and was never seen again, although Le Tissier himself stated that he may have seen him the following day receiving treatment in the physio's room. The incident has since become legendary, highlighting the importance of due diligence in player recruitment. It is often cited as one of the most bizarre moments in Premier League history. In 2016, a reporter from Bleacher Report managed to have a phone interview with the player, in which he denied the allegations outright. Television personality Mark Wright, best known for his role on The Only Way is Essex, made headlines in 2021 when he joined League Two side Crawley Town. Although he had some history with professional football, as a youth player with Tottenham Hotspur and later with Southend United, not to mention a stint at Crawley during their non-league days, his career had taken a different path when he transitioned into television and media. Despite his fame on reality TV and various presenting gigs, Wright's passion for football brought him back to the game. After impressing in the charity Soccer Aid matches, his move to Crawley was announced in December 2020. He made his official debut in January 2021, amazingly in an FA Cup tie against Leeds United, in which Crawley completed a giant killing, winning 3-1. The comeback drew a lot of attention, both for the curiosity around his shift back to football and because of the media spotlight surrounding him. Wright played only briefly for Crawley, making 2 appearances, and eventually left the club after the season, noting that balancing football and his media career was challenging. In 2018, Jamaican Olympic sprinting legend Usain Bolt made a surprising attempt to transition into professional football by joining Norwegian side Strømsgodset Godset on trial and playing in a friendly match. Bolt had often flirted with the idea of playing for Manchester United, but any such deal remained a fantasy. However, he did get offered a contract by Australian side Central Coast Mariners. At the age of 32, he played in several pre-season friendly matches, notably scoring 2 goals in a game against Macarthur Southwest United. While on trial in Australia, he was offered a contract by Maltese club Valletta, which he turned down in favour of staying with the Mariners, who eventually did offer him a full-time deal. The move came in for some criticism, with Perth Glory's Andy Keogh describing it as a kick in the teeth for proper professional footballers, stating that Bolt had the first touch of a trampoline. In the end, no deal could be reached to extend beyond the initial 8 weeks, and Bolt announced he was abandoning his attempt to play professionally. Bolt's stint with the Mariners was seen as a unique crossover, showcasing the global appeal of football and the potential challenges elite athletes face when switching sports. His only subsequent footballing game time has come in the way of Soccer Aid. Thanks for watching. If you like off-the-cuff football videos, 90s football and nostalgia, give us a subscribe. See you later. Goodbye.